Climate change for most of us has become a new reality. But what would Earth in 10, 20 or even 30 years from now look like? The 1.5 degrees Celsius mark has been passed. Humanity is plagued by heat waves, wildfires and floods year-round. Droughts become more frequent in parts of the world along with monsoons. All these lead to a higher rate of migration to cities as some parts of the world become uninhabitable. Overpopulation and unemployment burden cities. Horrific air quality leads to an increase in respiratory diseases. Fast forward a couple of decades, we exceed 2 degrees Celsius. Sea level has risen to an extraordinary level. Ice caps are non-existent, with ice returning back to the oceans. Entire countries such as the Maldives and the Marshall Islands are entirely submerged. Communities are forced to relocate entirely. Climate refugees reach the hundreds of millions. The extreme air temperatures make it near impossible for traditional farming. Fresh fruits and vegetables become a rare commodity. And this doesn't only affect humans. Hundreds of animal species will certainly perish due to the rapid change in ambient and sea temperatures. Animals such as penguins, seals and polar bears could only ever be witnessed in books and documentaries. What I've just described is a very bleak and unsettling future. However, the fight for climate change is real and it's happening. In this video, we'll be discussing the work of innovators and their efforts to fix climate change. When we talk about climate change, a particular industry tends to be at the center of most conversations: the production of electricity. Electricity production is the single largest source of carbon emissions globally. Fuels such as coal and gas have long been our primary fuel sources. However, that's no longer the case. Today, more than 30% of the global electricity demand is generated from renewable sources, with wind and solar dominating the market. Manufacturing costs have been slowly decreasing, which makes them more attractive to a greater number of countries. Even the likes of Saudi Arabia and the UAE are investing billions in renewable energy. By the way, you can learn more about that in a video I've made a while ago, which should appear somewhere at this point. Anyway, with energy storage capacities increasing, we can store more energy than ever before, allowing us to supply sustainable electricity even when there is no wind or sunshine. And this transition isn't just happening in the EU, China and the US. Even the likes of Chile, South Africa and the Philippines are investing heavily in battery energy storage. Another sector which is making a surprising comeback is nuclear. Major tech companies are investing billions in nuclear because of its potential as a baseline energy source and a way to power massive data centers. But not only are we developing and building new large-scale reactors, we're also tapping into something very exciting: small modular reactors. Albeit they are still in the development phase, but the potential is clearly there. The second and third largest sources of emissions are heating and transport. In most parts of the world, heating is achieved by burning natural gas, and we get stuck in traffic in a car by burning petrol or diesel. Nordic countries have absolutely dominated heat pump adoption. Norway has 60% of its heating powered by heat pumps, followed by Sweden and Finland, collectively at 40%. And this transition in Nordic countries to heat pumps is particularly attributed to government policies. Adoption in electric cars has been rapidly rising, but frankly, one country stands out from the crowd. Yep, China. As you can see, China has been steadily exceeding the rest of the world in EV sales and manufacturing. Last year, in 2024, China has dominated the EV market, representing 60% of global sales. And this statistic could be attributed to two main factors: the fact that China dominates EV manufacturing and their cheap electricity supplied by, shocker, solar and wind. So, with adoption of renewable energy, electrification of more industries becomes not only environmentally but also economically beneficial. Progress isn't just happening in China and the Western world. African governments have been implementing policies to increase adoption of EVs, such as Ethiopia and Rwanda. Obviously, transportation deserves an entire video on its own. Trains, aircrafts, and ships are all part of this massive industry, with each having its own unique challenges to reach net zero. Construction is another major contributor, with 8% of total emissions being attributed to it. But countries have been implementing policies to increase energy efficiency in the built environment. China, again, has implemented policies that require new and renovated buildings to be designed for energy efficiency. Japan's new building regulations require all new buildings to have net zero performance by 2030. And in the US, standards for net zero energy efficient buildings were recently published. Construction has one main ingredient: concrete. And concrete, if you didn't know, is the second most traded commodity in the world, around 30 billion tons to be exact each year, second only to water. It's also extremely carbon intensive to produce. But around the world, scientists are at work developing sustainable alternatives. Scientists in Denmark, for example, have developed green concrete, which substitutes cement for waste materials from mines, incinerators, and quarries. Another interesting alternative is hempcrete, which, by adding hemp fibers, a lighter concrete-like block is made. These alternatives are obviously not enough to provide a clear substitute for traditional concrete. However, the industry is currently looking into carbon capture units to be installed in steel and cement production plants. I'll be doing a video about carbon capture very soon, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button. In a world that often feels overwhelmed with bad news, it's important to remember that change is happening, and not always for the worse. If we can see progress today, it means that someone's efforts are making a difference. If you want to dive deeper into some insane projects targeting climate change, I highly recommend you watch this one next. Guys, thank you very much for watching. See you next week. Bye!